Hello everyone, and welcome for this tutorial on the cjapy, the version 0.04. And this video, I will introduce you to the cjapy environment documentation, how to actually get started, like really the beginning, and then I will get more into detail in the next videos of the different modules. As you may have seen now from the introduction to this video, we up to two different versions, so from 0.0.2 to 0.0.4, because I added some very cool new class and new endpoint that have been released during my making of the video. So yeah, bear with me. So in case you are uploading now, installing now, anyway, it will be the latest version that is available for you. So one thing I want to start with is where do you see all the documentation that I'm going to run to? There is the documentation in GitHub for you to see. There are different elements that we are going to go through the different videos. So there are core methods to set up cjapy in the domain documentation. Then you need to instantiate a class, which is a CTA class. We will get to that. But for those that are familiar with the Adobe Analytics API 2.0 Python wrapper, I think it's very understandable what is going to happen now. Then there is this Workspace class, which is quite new, this request creator class. And what I just did in the latest version is the addition of the project class for those that are familiar with Analytics 2, so the library for Adobe Analytics API. It's pretty common, but I will go again on this because I find it very interesting. You have some functionality and some elements, but there is also a get started page on cjapy, so you can actually open that, and there you can really see like how to download the library, do the configuration, and this is what we are going to do right now. Use the method and so forth. So this is really getting started and get running the first elements. Of course, everything is mostly done through Jupyter Notebooks. I will do the demo on Jupyter Notebooks, but you can do that on whatever you want. You don't have to use Jupyter Notebooks. You can use Jupyter Lab. You can use pure Python programming. It will work everywhere, but I find it, as I already said, the Jupyter Notebooks quite interactive and quite nice to get started on. There is, by default, this logging capability. So in case you want to know what's going on in the background, before there was a lot of verbose parameters that you can set. Now there is a logging capability. You can have more information into that here. I may do another video if you're interested into that later, but this is leveraging the logging module of Python and incorporating that in the main CGA class. All of the different dependencies that you have and the element to go to the documentation and use case for cjapy. For the CGA API, there is this, if you want to know what's going on in the background, first, which endpoint I'm putting, you have access to them in the official documentation. It's a very nice documentation. You can get there. You have all of those audit log, for example. You can see what you can use as query parameters. I have support for all of them, I believe, or most of them. And what kind of elements in case you want to recreate that or want to understand how it's going on in the background. But normally you don't have to take care of this if you're using the cjapy module. But anyway, it's always good to know, and it's really good work that the people from the technical writing teams is doing. Here I wanted to give you an overview of the projects in the console adobe.log, so developer.adobe.com, this website. In the last video, I was showing you not the correct project, so now I'm showing you the correct project. And again, I'm repeating myself saying that you need to have a customer journey analytics and experience platform API in the product combined together in order to use that. Okay, then when you are on there, you can click on the service account information. Obviously, you need to have the correct product profile also attached to those API, but that's a given. And then you have all of those information in the service account that you need to gather, and you have normally created a public key um, that is going to be downloaded automatically when you create this connection. So you have a private key, and we'll get to that just now. I've created a folder which is called tutorial cjapy, and you can see I have a configuration file. We'll do that. We'll go to that a bit later. And here in CGA config, I have my private key that is available for me. Okay, once you have that, let's go ahead and actually install. So pip install cjapy, and if you want to upgrade, I always recommend to upgrade. So I'm doing all of my upgrade. I'm publishing it, or I'm actually announcing it on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter. It's PitchCrack. Anyway, you look for cjapy or whatever on Twitter on Adobe Analytics API. I think you will find one of my tweets about that. Otherwise, just check the GitHub repo. I have a release note elements that explain what I'm doing on each of the release or each of the new version. They will start so at the 0.1.0. Before that, because it's very beta and either on side of Adobe or on my side, I'm adding a new method and so on. So it's so much unstable that I'm not keeping track of what is being added. But when I'm reaching the 0.1, then normally it's stable enough that you will get what is being changed or not. So normally there is not so much of an upgrade, but except when new endpoints comes. But yeah, if you want to do this upgrade, this dash upgrade needs to be used, and I'm going to do that right now. And I think I didn't install the latest version that I put on PyPy. So it will normally upgrade or reinstall this cjapy. And normally you can do that directly in your console because you have Python in your pathing element. So it's downloading, you can see up. So it's in installing 0.0.2 and installing the 0.03, 0.4. So now we are done. We'll then close that. And in the folder of this, of where I want to use the cjapy, you can open a PowerShell. And as I was explaining before in the latest video, what I recommend is to use Jupyter Notebooks or Jupyter Lab to actually do interaction and discover the API a bit. I mean, you can also read the documentation on my part on the GitHub. I think it's a quite extensive documentation where all of the method and parameters of the method are documented. But yeah, in case you want to play with it, I always recommend you to do this with Jupyter Notebook, and that's what I'm going to do now. And when you are now on Jupyter Notebooks, I want to run a new Python 3 notebook. And I have a very specific setup, so don't worry if your notebook does not look the same as mine. It's just because I've done some change here in order to work with it, but normally it should be fine for your notebook. So what the first thing I want to do is cjapy, import it. So seems my computer is quite slow as running the recording at the same time, but it took 5 seconds. And now the first thing after that cjapy is to create. So doing the tab, it will autocomplete and it will create a config file. So I'm just going to create one. I'm just checking first if there is. So this one is config cj. So let me just, you see that I can specify which file name I want to have. So I will keep it like this. Hopefully it will not override the existing one. So no, yeah, you can see it's config analytics template. And in there are the different elements that you want to add in order to connect to the CGA API. How it looks like this. So you need to copy the org ID. Let's just do it for the org ID. it's just here, organization ID. I'm copying it here and just putting that here. And though you do that for all of the thing, and here you put the path to your private key. So in me, it will be, I think, cjapy project or something like this, and then it will be private.key, something like this. And then you can actually import the configuration file into your Jupyter Notebook element. Oh, let me rename this one. Rename. So I'm going to rename that cjapy intro. And what I'm going to do now is import config file. I think I have this cjapy. What was the name? It was config cj. Config. So the tab, again, it will autocomplete config cja.json. From there, in order to actually start using the API, you need to create the connection and the token. So you will need to instantiate the CJA class. But just one note before that, you can also have the configure method or use that. And a good note as well is that when you do Shift Tab and you are inside a method or a function, you can see the docstring that I have already done on all of the methods. So you can see that you can pass all of the information you want to pass. In order to also, it's exactly the same method that importing the config file, but sometimes you don't want to create a file because you're on the cloud, because whatever. So you want to pass this, you want to use this method to import basically the configuration elements. Okay, that being done, now that I have done that, I'm actually going to create my class, and this one is easy. You just need to do cjapy cja. And here we go. So now we are going to use, I'm going to just make so I have setup. So you see that in, actually I don't need that anymore. So let me put that here. But in 1, 2, 3, on 3 elements now, or 3 lines, we have actually now connected to the CGA API, and we can start doing stuff to it. One thing good to know for you is that when you create this connection, automatically there is a token retrieved, and I don't know if I pass it here, no, but you can actually have the header where you can actually see the different elements, the header that is going to be used during your connection. So you, in any reason you want to use Postman or anything, you can just take this header and use Postman and it will work. Or if you want to create your own and just your own connection or your own module or whatever in Node, you can actually use that. And just to check if it's actually the same, just this will obviously be different because you create a new token for each connection that you are creating. Another interesting part is that you have a connector where you can actually also have the header, and I think you can also have the token here directly. So if you want only the token, you can use this method to access it. Okay, I'm done with that, and what I want to do now is actually get my data views. Just to get started, yeah, let's do it. Data views. And this is basically how it works. You have the get method, and now the data views are being shown here. So you see web call, data analyst. So this is the data view that we are going to use in our case. And you can see the parent data group ID, which is the data collection that is being used, and the ID of this data view that we want. Manageable profile test and so on. So you can access all of the data view and see the different information. The CGA instance, so the CGA instance of the CGA class that we just created. So this thing, as different method. If you do dot and tab in Jupyter Notebook, you can see that directly it's showing you all of the different methods. So you have copy method, you have create a calculated matrix, so create method, delete method. You can see the endpoint that is being used as well, which is always nice to see. And you can see, of course, obviously the get method. So lots of get methods. The header, as I already told you, and you have access to some elements that I'm using directly in the API. So it's just in. Normally you don't need them if you don't understand them. The logger or logging enable method or attributes, and then you have the update and validate. Oh yeah, sorry. You have some validate. So if you create a calculated metric, the good thing is that you have endpoint you can call to validate that the calculated matrix definition that you are building is correct, and you can use the validate for that. One thing is that the attribute sample filter message log. So when you use the audit log capability, and I think I was showing you that, you have the get or the post. And the post is a bit more complex because you can send a message, a very much more complicated message to it, and it's a dictionary that you need to pass on. I don't know if I can have here. No, I don't have an example, but the dictionary is quite complex. So I give you a sample here that you can use. And you can see, okay, I want to have the criteria, those criteria when I'm retrieving audit logs, because it's quite important amount of information that you are going to get. You want to get the audit log that are specific information in it. So they want to have calculated metrics, and you want the description to contains, operator contains, created, and at the same time, you have user email is not equals to Jane, or apparently there is an or condition. The user email operators equals to John. So you have everything that you need to know on the different operators and the in, the content, the equals, and the different field operators or an and to create those dictionary, and then you can shuffle them around. So this is it, guys, for the overview of the different elements available for CGA at the very beginning. So getting started with the get methods and how to use them. Of course, I will not go through a video. I will not create a video for every get method. There is documentation for that. So please read the documentation here in the CGA documentation. Yeah, you can see that here. All of the get methods are explained, and the create method and delete methods, and so forth. But yeah, this was, I hope, helpful for you to get you started, and I will come back in another video to explain to you the other class, the workspace, the request creator, and the project class. Have fun. Bye.